absolutely ages ago, I asked you all if you'd got any questions because I'd started getting questions about me, which took me by surprise. I was only expecting questions about crafts. Anyway, I've put together a video which I've been filming in bits here and there. So, well, here goes. And if you've got any more questions, let me know because I'll make another one if you're really that interested. This is a good one. Who is this from? Gert. Thanks for this one. Gert asked, what do you do with the pieces that are straight up disasters? Actually, do you have or ever have had any disasters? Oh, heck yes. I have made some almighty messes. In fact, I'm trying to get some resin that hasn't cured because I think I put 2 Part A's in it out of a mould, and it's a brand new mould. 3 days it's been upside down now, trying to get the resin out of it. So yes, and some disasters, yeah, they do end up in the bin. There's some that I think, you know, it might be a disaster, but maybe I can take that piece and put it in something else, or, you know, there's some things I can improvise with. But yeah, I have disasters, and in fact, in some of my videos, you might see them. Oh, I did one the other day. I mixed up Eco-Pour. So wrong, you wouldn't believe it. Honestly, it just ended up as a stodgy mess. It was my fault. I got distracted while I was mixing it, and it started to cure. I just really hadn't cracked on with it. So I had to scoop it all out and chuck it in a bin bag. What a waste. So yeah, it happens. We're all human. I do have the odd disaster. Some of them you'll actually see on my videos because I don't cut them out. Others, it would just make the video too long and too messy. So I do cut it out. I also do an outtakes video sometime, hadn't I? That'd be fun if I can find all the originals. But yes, Gert, I do have disasters. I think we all do. I honestly don't think anybody can not have a disaster from time to time. And yeah, sometimes they do end up in the bin. It is what it is. Deb, you wanted to know how old Fudge is. If anybody doesn't know, Fudge is my guinea pig. He's 3. As I filmed this, it was his birthday 2 days ago. He had extra lettuce and I bought him a new hay rack. Not that he seemed to know it was his birthday, but it made him happy. Now, somebody else, and I can't remember who, asked me why he's so big. And it's because he's from show stock. He's a posh pig. Don't tell him that, though. But he's a boy, or boar as they're properly known. They're boars and sows and piglets, like piggies. And because he's from show stock, he's a big lad. So he's like, probably compared to the guinea pigs you get from a normal pet shop, he's a good half as big again. He's hefty and a cheeky little sod. So that's Fudge, and yes, he's 3. Right, our next question. This is from JODIH. Jody, is that 707? What do you use to protect your work surface? That's a good question. Now, on my desk, I've got a huge black rubber mat, and it was from Let's Resin. I've got 2 of them now, actually. I got a bit extravagant and got myself 2, and they're enormous, and it's real heavy duty rubber as well. So that covers all my desk, and then on top of it, the pretty coloured thing that you see, it's usually purple or light blue or something. That's just another silicone mat, and they're the sort that you'd use for any crafts or for cooking, that sort of thing. Typically, it's on top of my little levelling table as well, which is also a Let's Resin thing, because my desk isn't as level as it should be. So that's what I use. And yeah, the mats, the little pretty coloured mats that I put on the top, people have asked about those before, the purple one in particular. There's a link for that down in my video descriptions of all my craft videos that I put on, because, say, people ask me about that. What I tend to do, because it's quite a big one, and they're not the cheapest either, I cut it in half, because then it's the perfect size to go on top of my little levelling table. And of course, straight away I've got 2 mats. So there you go, I've got a load of those now. I'm at the museum at the moment. If you can hear a hand dryer going, that's the hand dryer in the gents' toilets. Nice. Anyway, yes, if you look down in my video descriptions, you'll see that also, if you fancy one of the huge black mats from Let's Resin, I've got a discount code for you for that. And I'll put a link on, I always put a link on for those purple mats as well, but just from Amazon. So I hope that answers that question. If you could collaborate with any other creator on a project, who would it be and why? Oh my goodness, that's a difficult one. probably, this might be predictable. Those of you who know resin crafts and things will probably think, oh, that's predictable. But Nick Zabetti, just because I think it'd be an absolute riot, and I'd probably learn a lot about filmmaking and things as well, but I would have to actually go there and work with him, not just do video collaboration type thing. Because I think, yeah, I just think that could be really entertaining and mad, and I'd learn an awful lot about how to do the whole video thing, as well as being such fun, because he's just insane fun as well as so talented. So anyway, a bit predictable, but yeah, Nick Zametti. My first collaboration, by the way, was with Wendy from Toonfish Crafts. I got in touch with her and I just could not believe that she said yes. She is such a nice person, and I felt like I was talking to like a proper YouTube celebrity. And then it turned out, you know what, there's nothing celebrity about Wendy. She, other than, you know, obviously her amazing presence and her amazing talent on YouTube and all her, you know, her amazing crafts and so on. She is so down to earth. She's absolutely lovely, and I couldn't believe she said yes. It really helped me to get my channel going, because of course straight away I've got access to her audience, because we both made a video, we chatted, and she can send me the thing that she made as part of their collaboration. It's got pride of place next to my telly. It's a little looks like a dragon egg with a little dragon set in it. Purple, of course. If you know Wendy, you'll know why. So that was my first collaboration. There's a few people asked similar questions to this. Cars, guinea pig, insects, how did you get into each? And of course, what drew me to resin crafts? Right, resin crafts, that's an easy one. Daniel Cooper. Thanks, Daniel. I'd seen a number of resin crafters, and I'd been doing miniature scenery and using resin to make the water. So I started looking at what else you could do with resin, and I saw a number of channels, but back then Daniel was just working on the original Petri swirl effects that he was doing, and I was absolutely transfixed, and I loved his simple style of filming, and just what a talented artist. And the fact that it was also close up and you could do little tiny things. I've always liked little tiny things. That's where my name Mini Scenes comes from. I used to do little mini, I still do, you've probably seen my waterfalls, but there's a lot of dioramas and things like that, which is it's a habit I got from my dad, because he used to do model railways. So having seen what Daniel was doing, I was totally inspired. So I started having a go with resin to make little jewellery pieces and so on. So that's where that came from. Cars, that's all my dad's fault as well. There's a lot of things I could blame my dad for, actually. Now, when I was a little girl, my dad bought a Mini Cooper S, bright red one. It turned out to be the Mark III prototype. So to be, God knows what it'd be worth now. Probably more than my house, substantially so. It'd probably be here in this museum by now. It's long since gone and been destroyed, I think. It certainly hasn't been taxed for many years, because I did a DVLA search on it. But I loved that car. I think I was 9 when he sold it, and that's what started it for me. Then I had a Mark I Escort when I was learning to drive, which Dad taught me how to change the wheels and check the oil and all that sort of thing. Dad was always into cars. My brother was as well, but he was on a much more bigger budget scale than me. So that's cars. Guinea pigs. Right, but I always loved animals, as did my whole family. But my little brother Heath was horrendously allergic to most furry things and feathery things. So Dad had budgies, but they were right at the bottom of the garden in an aviary. When I was very little, we had a rabbit, and it made Heath really, really ill. So I couldn't really have any little furries until one day, I think I was about 8 or 9. I wasn't very old anyway. Someone said, what about guinea pigs? Because their fur is that little bit coarser. It's more like hair than a soft, fluffy fur of a rabbit. So we got a guinea pig. And the guinea pig thing started. Yeah, so the whole guinea pig thing got a bit out of hand. I think at one point I've got about 60 of them. And I was breeding them to show. So fancy pedigree, rare breeds, all that sort of thing. Yeah, there's such a thing as a guinea pig show. Seriously, you've got to go to one of those. Funniest thing ever. And so I kind of always had guinea pigs ever since. And as you probably know, we've now just got the one. That's Fudge. And he's, as I film this, he's said he's 3 years old. And, yeah, taking over our house gradually. So, yeah, that's the whole guinea pig thing. Now, what else was I meant to be telling you about? Let me refer back to my list. Oh, and welcome to the Jaguar collection, by the way. Oh, yes, hang on. Some of you will recognise this one. Recognise that? Quite funny. Right, next question. Have I always been artistic? Where do I get it from? Well, my mum and dad, particularly dad, were quite artsy, I suppose. I always was at school. I was quite academic as well, except with maths. But I was very into art. It was one of the things I really liked doing. And so I did go to art college after school. And then I decided not to take that further and not to go ahead and do a university degree or anything like that because I don't think my heart was in it enough. It wasn't the right sort of art, you know. Anyway, it's something I've always just carried on doing, a bit of messing about and doing a little bit of art. And when Dad started making his model railways again, I joined in. And that's when I discovered resin, by the way, because I was using it for ponds. So, welcome to the reserve collection. Anyway, yeah. So I've always done it, really. And I knew that it'd get out of hand as soon as I retired. And messing about with cars would get out of hand again. So the other question people asked me about me being arty crafty was, were my kids artistic? I don't know, it's never occurred to me to mention this. I don't have kids. Now, very often, people will say, oh, it's a shame you couldn't have had kids. I have no idea whether I could have had kids. Honestly, I'd be the most irresponsible mother you could imagine. And thankfully, Mark wasn't bothered about having kids. That our siblings were having kids. Mark's brother and sister have got kids. My late brother had my wonderful niece. And so we kind of left it to them, really. And so, yeah. But we decided we were way too irresponsible to have kids. So we didn't. Simple as that. The artsy thing, I think my brother was quite artistic. I don't know whether Eden is. She's got quite an eye for interior decor. Her home's beautiful. So there is that. And I know her fella, her husband Scott, he's quite artistic. His degree's in textile design or something, I think. But, yeah, I suppose I'm the one that's the most obsessive artsy. Always have been. I'll put some of my pictures that I did years ago. I'll pop those up on the screen for you in a minute. When I was, when would this have been? Art college, but it wasn't something I learned at art college. I started doing like wildlife drawings, and those were just something I love doing, but I've got to be in the mood. You can tell the ones when I'm not in the mood, because the animals don't look quite right. Want to see the workshop? That is an insane workshop. Oh, the lighting isn't great, is it? So, yeah, it's just something I've just carried on. Now, I don't do those sort of drawings anymore. In fact, I'll show you a picture of the last one I did. I did a picture of my Mini, and that's got to be 20 years ago. I'll pop that on the screen for you as well. But I've always been fascinated by making little things. Now, dolls' houses never really did it for me. I find them fascinating, but because I didn't like dolls, I think it was more like little animals, scenery, cars. That was more my thing. And discovering resin has really allowed that to take off. I've taken that off obviously a lot further. So yeah, that's kind of my art history. I mean, when I decided not to go on and do art for a career, I just grabbed the first job that came along, and that was to be an office junior at an insurance broker's. And little did I know that was going to launch a career, so that's what I did for 30 odd years. Worked for an amazing company in Stratford-on-Avon for most of that time, and until I got the opportunity to retire really early. So that's kind of the story. But I'd always been the arty one. Next question, I've been asked by a whole load of people again, was why on earth did I start YouTube? Which is a bit of an odd thing to do at my age, really. I was 55, and I had been inspired, as I said earlier, by Daniel Cooper's channel, loads of others. And it's, you know, the training, getting squashed between Land Rovers here. The training person in me, learning and development consultant, put the proper name to what I was doing, kind of liked to see other people succeed. So showing other people how to do things, that always kind of was my bag. And when I realised that actually YouTube's quite cool, and that nobody would see my first videos anyway, nobody cares, nobody's looking, I thought, well, what have I got to lose? So I just started. So yeah, that's why YouTube. It just seemed a nice, easy way to show people things and share. I just, you know, it's just fun, really. The fact that it's working out so well has totally taken me by surprise. Really wasn't expecting it, and it's all a bit weird at my age anyway. Hey, do I sell my creations? And if so, where? That's a really good question, Jellybean Crafts. Yeah, I used to. I used to do craft fairs, epic disaster every time. I then found a trick which is one that I would recommend you try actually, and that is gate crashing other events. So some of you may know I do a bit of model railway scenery making as well. So what I started doing was having a stand at a model railway exhibition where the organiser, it's a very, very big one by the way, it's a national level exhibition, it's huge, but the organiser was very kind and let me do half model railway and half stuff. So I got dragons, I got my Christmas baubles with little cars in, which went down very well because it was at a motor museum, this event. It filled the big conference suite. Sorry if it's noisy in the background, by the way. I'm in a lovely little coffee shop in Astrid Bank, which is the village I was brought up in and born in. And I'm just waiting for Mum to come back from the shops. Anyway, yes, so those went quite well. The only difficulty is the stand price was quite expensive. I was used to paying like £20, £30 for a stand at a craft fair, and then be lucky if I covered my costs. This event was costing initially £60, but I was taking best part of £1,000. So I thought, ooh, that's good. Then the following year, the price went up, and it went up, and it went up, and eventually it hit £160. It was a 2-dayer, but if I was still taking over £1,000, I thought that was worth it. But I wasn't. The takings were going down as well, and it got to the point where I just thought, I could be doing something other than this. It's 2 very long days, a lot of hassle, a lot of, you know, all the setup time and all that sort of thing for very little benefit. So I lost interest. Along with that, what coincided was me starting to get some support from so many suppliers. And so, as many of you all know, I don't have to buy quite a lot of my materials now. So when I'm making things for my videos, yes, some materials I'm still having to pay for, and lots of the tools and things. But there's a certain amount of stuff I just don't have to pay for. Therefore, it doesn't owe me anything. And especially once the videos started making me a little bit of an income as well, I thought I don't actually need to sell this stuff, so I started giving it to charity. Now, the first charity I supported, they did quite well out of it, but it wasn't really they hadn't really got the right outlet for it, so it didn't work terribly well for them. So I'm now supporting the Acorn Children's Hospice, and they hopefully will do well out of it. My stuff will appear in their shops within the next couple of weeks, so fingers crossed that they will do well out of my stuff. So that's where all my stuff goes now. As you know, I do have a little bit of stuff for sale on my website as well, although not much. It's more like the things like the moulds and things that I make that sell on there. The link for my shop my online shop is always down in the video description. So I hope that answers that question. Incidentally, if anybody ever wanted to buy anything that I make in my videos, yeah, I'm always happy to talk to you. And if it's something that's cost me nothing to make, then obviously I'll just be looking for something like a donation to the charity so that I can give them some money instead. So there you are. Right, next question. Here's one I get asked a lot. Is that fish tank real? Or is it an AI background? Let me just flip the camera around. Yeah, it's extremely real. I've just converted over to real plants, and the fish seem to be loving it. I'm just waiting for them to grow up and hide the pipe. I've got a CO2 system going on it as well now. So it's, yeah, the plants are starting to grow in nicely. Let's see if I can back up a bit and get the whole thing in. Sort of. It's a clear system. So it's got, so it's quite a tall tank. The Enterprise has crashed in the bottom. And in the bottom here, it probably needs cleaning out, so excuse the state of it. There's a big sump system in there. There you go. That's out on the other side. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. I do apologise, but that's a big filtration system in there. And this is it from the end, and this is where I tend to stand to feed them, so they now all think they're going to get fed. Hello, you. There's more videos on my fish tanks on one of my other channels, and that is called Tracy's Random Stuff, so you'll see more about the fish on there, because I've got nano tanks as well, and I've got all sorts going on. Reason I'm into fish, this was another question somebody asked, was I was brought up with them. My dad always had a fish tank when I was a kid, and a great big pond as well. So, which is now Mum's on her own. She's kind of just turned the pond over to being like a nature bog garden thing. So I've ended up with a lot of the creatures out of there and the fish and things like that. But anyway, yeah. So there's the tank from the end, and yes, look, they all think they're going to get fed. Shall I feed them? Shall we? Might be difficult with one hand. Hang on. Ooh, it's a bit shaky. I do apologise. I usually turn the filter off so it doesn't, so all the food doesn't end up in the filter. Let's go back round the front. You want a sense of scale, those angelfish are pretty much full grown now. Let's put my hand in front of them. They're almost full grown. That's a boy, that's a girl, and these two are a pair as well. There's the boy. Beautiful, aren't they? And they do spawn every so often. Not that we've had any babies yet, of course, but they're learning. They're novice parents. All the little ones are thinking about breeding. There seems to be some very fat potential mummy fish going on down there, so lots of them. Right, anyway, there's the fish tank situation. On to the next question. Well, you can tell how long it is since I started filming these questions and answers. I've had my hair cut and I've gone greyer. It's been a couple of months. Anyway, because questions kept coming in, I've just kept going. So let's get these last few sorted out. Now, there's some questions that Barbara had about EcoPore, so we're getting a bit crafty with some of my questions here. How soon do you sand the items? Do you have to, or is it only on and off pour? And what stage you seal it? Right, okay, there's a few questions around EcoPore here. So, first of all, the sanding then. I usually find it's best if I leave it kind of overnight. Let all the moisture go out of it, probably 24 hours or something like that even, and then sand it. But you can wet sand it as well. I use the Boo and Nicole like proper sanding kit, and you dunk it in water and sand it. So that's best done when it's dried really, really thoroughly. And no, you don't have to. The only time I sand it really is like if the bottom surface hasn't gone very well, like the edges, you get a lip like you do with resin sometimes. So to sand that off. The time that you would want to sand it, of course, is if you're doing terrazzo, which I've never done. I must do that sometime, actually. What stage you seal it? Yes, it does matter when you seal it. Weeks later will be fine. In my videos, I sometimes end up sealing too early, really. There might be still some moisture in the EcoPore. Now, it's better if, again, you let all that moisture out, because otherwise you're going to trap some in. So I would leave it, ideally, a couple of days, just to really let that come out. Because as you probably know, all of these eco casting powders, not just EcoPore, but I think all of this type of thing, that it takes a couple of days for them to get their full resilience, their full strength up. And I think that's partly because of just that last little bit of moisture coming out of them. So I would say leave it at least a day, probably two, ideally, before you seal them. Can you leave it unsealed? Yeah, you can leave it unsealed. I've got quite a few unsealed things, but if it's going to be anywhere where it's going to get damp, if you're going to get any moisture in it, like if you're making things for your bathroom, for example, then you will be wanting to seal it either with wax or with one of the liquid paint on or sponge on type sealants. But if it's just for something purely decorative that's never going to get any moisture anywhere near it, you don't have to seal it, no. How much can you pour at once, and does it affect the mould if you use it for resin after? Right, how much can you pour at once? There doesn't appear to be a maximum pour depth. I've gone from everything from this deep up to like that, and it makes no difference. Does it affect the mould if you want to use it for resin after? I've only used moulds for Eco Pour followed by resin a few times, but I don't seem to have had any issues with it. Obviously, I give the mould a good clean because the you don't want any sort of dusty residue or bits where you know when you demould it, little bits come away from around the edge or something. You don't want any of that in there. But as long as the mould's clean, sorry, so as long as the mould's clean, I haven't had any problems myself so far. Let's put it like that. There we go. I think that's all Barbara's questions. Anything else? You know what? I think I am nearly down all of these questions. Getting inspiration from what is my fave medium in craft? Oh, top 5 crafting essentials for a resin artist. Okay, leveling table. Let's do this one first. Leveling table or a desk, a work surface that's level. For resin artists, that's got to be the top of your list. And then, of course, all your PPE stuff. Can I clump that into one? So, respirator, goggles, if you can sort out some sort of extractor fans, ventilated room. I mean, those have all got to be right at the top of your list, haven't they? But actual gadgets and materials and tools and things like that, I would say probably what do I use the most? My ultraviolet curing lamps. I've got quite a collection of those. The double-sided one from Let's Resin is I use an awful lot. And the UFO shaped, I call it the UFO. It's like a big round one that goes on, that sits over and covers a big area. I use that a lot. And then I've got my little clamp that clips on the side. So I would say those would be some of my crafting essentials. What else? Other than that, it's just about the right resins and things like that. So quite 5 crafting essentials. Quite like my little curing machine as well. It's one from Resoners, and it's just a nice little compact one like that. It's good for curing small pieces. Was that 5? I can't count. You know what I'm like. That's a lot of stuff. But it's mostly around flat surfaces, PPE, and things for curing, I suppose. Where do I get my inspiration? There's a number of things I do, and I'm probably going to make a little video on this sometime. It's largely around watching what you guys all do, because I'll see somebody else's video and I'll think, oh, that's a great idea. I wonder if I could do it like this. So I'll try to put my spin on things. Sometimes it'll just trigger ideas, Other things I do is just sit and stare into space, or let my brain go off the hook. Kicking the leaves, they call it. It's when you just let your mind just free flow, and that is why ideas happen in the middle of the night, by the way. It's because your brain's in just free flowing. So tip for you, always keep a notepad handy. I've always got a little pad of post-it notes so that I can just scribble them down, and when I get home I can just slap them in my big folder wherever else it fits with all the other ideas, or where in my diary it's going to go. It just means that nothing slips off the radar. But yeah, there's quite a lot to be said for just sitting and drinking a cup of tea or watching the fish. Relaxing. I don't do it enough. I think most of us don't. But sometimes just letting it flow, just clear your mind and don't try too hard, Kicking the leaves. That's a good one. The one I think I get the most ideas from, though, is when things turn up. When I see a mould or a new tool or a colour stuff, and I just immediately want to play with it. And so that's when my brain starts to really go crazy. And let's take my glasses off, that's better. And that's when my brain tends to go really crazy and I just start coming up with ideas. But again, always having a notepad by me. There's even a notepad by the bed, because you know what it's like. You have bright ideas in the middle of the night when you're kicking the leaves in your brain. And yes, so make a note of it. And then I find if I start with one idea at the top of a sheet of paper, I'll think, yeah, but what if I did that? Oh, I could do that with it too. What's that new stuff I've got? I could add that to the list. And so I end up with a whole load of ideas just off that one idea. I will make a little video on this sometime. because it's probably one of the most asked questions I get, really. I have still got a list of about 500 videos to make. Some keep jumping the queue, and because something new turns up, or I keep adding to the end of it, and I'm never getting down this list. Anyway, what else is there? Favourite medium. Did I say what my favourite medium was? Well, it's got to be resin, just epoxy resin. Here's another one from 3_3645. Don't know what your name is, sorry. Why would a product called Diamond Crystal, brackets, I think, close brackets, a jewellery resin fog up over a 4-leaf clover I put in jewellery bezel years ago? Might not be your area, but maybe you've had resin fog up on a project? Also was curious if there is a matte finish resin. Oh, let's tackle that in order. Right, I don't know of the diamond crystal resin. I've not tried that. I've never had the resin that I use fog up, so I don't know. Now, this is a 4-leaf clover put in a jewellery bezel years ago. Now, some resins discolour. They just do over time. They just go off. It depends what this resin is that you're talking about. I'm not familiar with that one. The resin I use just doesn't. So try a different type of resin. It could also be that 4-leaf clover may have finally rotted away. I don't know whether you didn't say whether you dried it or not. If you dry a leaf or a flower or whatever really thoroughly, they won't rot away in your resin. But if there's a little bit of moisture left in them still, they will, and it can take a very long time because they're in a sealed environment. So it could be a combination of things there. Matte finish resin, not that I'm aware of, but of course what you can do if you want your resin to go matte, you can either use a matte finish mould, because if your mould's matte, your resin will come out matte. If it's shiny, it will come out shiny. Or you could sand it afterwards to make it go matte. You could do that. So Tammy has said, not seen you use Perfect Plaster. She uses that because it's safer for her husband. It's not a brand I'm aware of, Tammy. It's much less expensive than resin. Okay, so I don't know what that is. I would say it's not one of the eco casting powders that I use, because they are certainly don't work out cheaper than resin, really. Is it actually plaster, like plaster of Paris? Might be, because that would be cheaper. Now, the question is, do you know what you can use to colour it? Tried alcohol inks, acrylic paint, acrylics, inks, and rich dye. Don't know what that is. But nothing does much in the way of colouring plaster. Right, there's some colours that I use that I'm sure would work for that, because they certainly work for plaster of Paris, which I do use for some other projects which you don't often see on this channel. Homeware Designs and Create and Bloom and Boo and Nicole make some really good colours for the eco casting powders. Now, those would transfer very well to plaster of Paris, so try those. Sheila wanted to know how I stay motivated to keep going and creating. Well, I've only been doing this YouTube thing for 1.5 years. And if I get a spell when I'm not feeling so motivated, I do something else instead. Because it's always been a hobby being crafty. I'm still in the woohoo, this is great stage. So it's not a problem. I'm constantly learning. I think that's probably what keeps it going, and I hope will long term as well, because all my other things I've got obsessed with over the years, which is probably the car thing mostly. It is the constant learning. I'm learning about video editing, filming. I'm learning about equipment, because I started knowing absolutely zero. And of course I'm learning new craft materials, techniques, all that sort of thing, all the time. There's new stuff coming out, new ideas that I can latch onto. So I think that learning process is something that's keeping me going. Have I got bins and large containers of past creation shoved down everywhere? Oh yes, I think I've covered that earlier in this video. I've given up trying to sell them. They all go off to charity shops now. Suda wanted to know, should resin creations be fully cured and hard before sanding? Answer to that, yeah, because they're just not going to sand very well otherwise. You can do the edges with a deburring tool while it's still soft. In fact, that's a great time to do it. But if you need to actually sand for whatever reason, yeah, I'd give it a couple of days, let it really harden up first. I think that's all of them, you know. Thanks ever so much for all the questions, everyone. In case you hadn't guessed, my laptop's down here. I've stuck my phone on a grippy thing, because that's what's doing the filming, on top of my laptop, and I've got a little stick-on light here, and yeah, and I'm in the middle of doing a load of paperwork, as you can see down here, and it's a bit of a mess. So, yes, I just thought I'd pick up the last few questions. I will do another one of these if you want me to, if you're still interested. And I will get on and do another live stream soon. I haven't done it for a while because I was waiting to get set up with a better webcam arrangement and so on. So that'll be coming soon. Thank you all for your support and for your questions. That was quite interesting, actually. There's some of those I didn't quite know how to answer. I had to really stop and think. So good stuff. And take care, everyone. And I will see you for my next videos. Bye all.